of taxpayers' money per person. So if you put someone away for 10 years for something trivial, that is 100 grand times 10 handed over of taxpayers' money to the prison industrial complex, which is an offshoot of the military industrial complex. And it's the absolute priority of the government is to keep the money funnel open for the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complexes. So, you know, whether the states are softening on people smoking the green, for example, they have to compensate for that then by tightening laws in other areas to keep the prison population full. Higher sentences, you've got them lobbying for bigger and bigger sentences. You've got the prison guards unions lobbying for free strikes laws, non-violent offenses, 3 strikes, 25 years, people stealing pizzas, getting 25 years to life. It is out of control. It's insane over there.
Well, that's right. And also in England, don't forget, private prisons you got all over England and Europe. It's growth. It's a growth industry, right? In a way, it's a reflection of the whole culture because we're all in a prison, right? They're getting everybody in a prison state of mind, pretty much. And one of the reasons for the quarantining during COVID is that it conditioned people for a couple of years to be used to sitting in your room all by yourself. That way your mind can be controlled. You feel estranged and alienated from more of humanity. And, you know, I noticed in London on September 13th, there's a big rally, both sides of the issue on immigration, right? And it's like watching America, Democrats against Republicans, 2 groups pitted against each other. Who profits, right? And that's why we say, you know, it's so, the corruption and evil is so sick and so endemic everywhere that we got to get out of the system and create something different. And that's when we're talking about solutions. It's why we had to create the common law courts. You can't operate under the old jurisdiction. You know, it's why I wrote that book. When people say, what do you do about it? You create your own personal, political, spiritual jurisdiction, your own sovereign republics. And as a matter of fact, for folks in England, the Republic of Albion is raising its flag and declaring independence on September 21st at Runnymede, which is where the Magna Carta was signed. I think it's somewhere on the Thames near London. And they're going to raise the flag of the Republic and say, we have no more ties with this criminal power called the Crown. We need our own republic like we did in Canada. And that's one of the things I know people are thinking, what can we do about this horrible evil? You're not going to lobby a politician about this. You know, we got to get out, deflate their system, inflate our own. And that's the only answer to this madness because, you know, it's just insane the degree to which it's going now, right?
It is insane. And I just want to say we've got almost 3,500 people watching right now across all platforms. Mm-hmm. Kevin's hitting some record numbers here. So it's very important, you know, he comes and spends this time with us on a lot of the Saturdays, that you please check out of his links and his books. And all of those links are in the description box below this video. And the chat is going so fast. I've got one eye on Kevin. I've got one on the chat. I'm going cross-eyed here. I know there's so many questions coming in. I do have a few more questions of my own for Kevin, though, before I hand it over to the viewer questions. And one of those is, what will be the impact of this evidence when the court opens up on September the 1st? How does the court plan to do its work? Have court people, or are you being threatened or attacked?
Well, it's all connected because it's under tight security. We're under protective custody right now. I think you mentioned last time my bodyguard, Joseph, sent out a letter to people and about the need to support us now because, I mean, every day literally could be our last when you're going up against these powers. So it's one of the reasons we're posting this interim report, what the prosecution has found so far, so it's not lost. And so we have a certain amount of protection. But the reason we had to surface this stuff now is because there's more break-in all the time. When I was, just yesterday, I was notified by the prosecutor's office, we've got 16 new people wanting to come forward with evidence. This is like 26 plus eyewitnesses so far. They only had 32 witnesses at Nuremberg that convicted all these people of crimes against humanity. We had 300 plus in Canada to do our murder by decree book. I expect it to grow exponentially. And as that happens, more people are, including in the system, will be encouraged to come forward. So we think this could be revolutionary. It could split this whole thing wide open. That, of course, is what they're trying to present, and they will do everything possible. Santa Alianza, everybody we've been mentioning who are implicated in this are going to do everything possible to, they won't just smear and discredit, because that doesn't work anymore. Like, smears after a while just help you because it gets your name around more, right? They will try to eliminate us, absolutely. And so that's why I say everyone listening has a responsibility to act on this. So it isn't just Kevin Annett and his crusade, because it's one of the ways to delegitimate something. You say it's all about one guy, Kevin, right? You know, as if I personally caused Ratzinger to step down, right? You know, it's a lot of people working together, but those of us who are the public figures of this need to be a catalyst to have others come forward. And, you know, now as everyone is waking up to, now is a turning point in the world. We're going to either head towards total corporate slavery or self-governance. And part of that is justice, bringing to trial and locking up forever these child murderers and even more vile things, which we didn't even get into today. Some of the closed evidence that'll be coming out after September. It's beyond belief, and affirms to me the satanic presence in a lot of these things, right? And so anyway, that's more of the same.
So are the British authorities going to allow you entry into this country next month?
We'll see. Some of the people, like, I'm coming to Europe anyway to work with the court. To actually come into Old Blighty, people have said, Kev, you better take a submarine and land off the coast of Cornwall somewhere, because they're not going to let you in. But what we want to do is, wherever I do come in, we're going to make it totally public and have cameras there and everything. And if they want to lock me up in a prison, fine, let's all go to the prison. And you know, it gives us more exposure. And that's, if they were smart, that isn't what they would do right now. They would set up their own substitute. This is what always happens. They set up their own version to co-opt and contain an issue, like they did in Canada. Now they're saying, oh yeah, we know all about these horrible things that happen to children, and we've apologized and blah, blah. It's redirecting rather than denying. And we can expect that when you start getting effective for the controlled opposition and substitutes to rear their ugly heads. But I'm going to try it. There's no reason why I should be kept out of the country of my ancestors. I don't intend to be kept out.
So how is your work with the Republic here going?
Republic of Albion, I tell you, the confidence and courage I've met in people. We've been having calls all over Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and England. And people are ready to go. Like, they're going down to that big rally in London on September 13th with the message that, look, yes, cultural sovereignty is important. We have to hold on to our identity. You know, the whole issue of immigration, that immigrants brought into an area where they don't have any knowledge and everything, inciting racism and hatred and all that. You can hold on to your cultural sovereignty, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of other people. We're trying to find, like we did in Canada, a common ground now, where everyone can be part of a federated republic, where these crimes are not allowed to go on. And the reason why it's important to talk about the royal connection to all this, Charles and Andrew and all these people, is because under law, they're not allowed to rule. They're convicted felons. I don't think you have the term in England, felon, but it's an American term, but a criminal, in effect. You know, convicted criminal. They're not allowed to be sitting there having any kind of political authority. So that creates, like it did in Canada, the need for a new arrangement, the Republic. And make sure that when you vest all power in a few hands, like a king or a pope or head of a CEO, it's inevitable that you're going to get corruption and crime. And, you know, actually the report started with that brilliant quote from Lord Acton in England in 1887 about power corrupting, absolute power corrupting absolutely. He was referring to the Vatican when he said that. The quote is, "I cannot accept your belief that we are to judge Pope and King unlike other men, with a favorable presumption that they can do no wrong. If there's any presumption, it is in the other way, against holders of power, increasing as the power increases. There is no worse evil than when the office sanctifies the holder of it. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." You get one person rule, and like Thomas Paine said in the American Revolution, one man rule is neither just, sane, nor reasonable. You know, and it leads to these crimes. And that's why we've got to, you know, for the sake of our children and to stop these crimes, we need a new sovereign arrangement. legally, politically, in every way, right?
So thank you for the super chat question, Crikey. Are rituals done under the Washington Monument in America?
They're done all over, but that's one spot because, as you know, energetically, it's linked to City of London and St. Peter's Square. So absolutely it is. And we've been concentrating our focus on Europe right now because that's where a lot of the evidence is. But people in America who have that knowledge need to contact our tribunal. And it's, I think you posted that email as well, didn't you, Shaun? The way people can contact us.
How will this affect William and Catherine, or are they complicit?
You're not in that position unless you know. You may not participate directly, although to be in any senior position, you do have to participate directly. That's how they know you're safe. And so, of course, they all know. And they'll be held to account. Like you said at the beginning of the show, every human being is answerable under law, not under their own rules and statutes, canon, admiralty, all that, and under the law of nature, their common law, everybody is liable for their actions.
You're getting asked whether you have fear going down this road.
Of course I do. Who doesn't have fear? But it's not a matter of having it or not, it's a matter of what you do with it. And what I've always done with my fear is I think, okay, what's going to happen if I drop out? It's not going to keep me safe, for one thing. And who's safe? We're all going to die, right? Mortality, you know, is looking us in the face all the time. We could die tomorrow of anything. How are you going to spend the next moment, the next day, the next year? That's what I always keep in mind. And then I think of those children stretched out on an altar, and I say, how could I stop? You know, I don't view those children any less dear than my own daughters. So you keep going, and you keep going with the help of other people, right?
Tristan wants to know, do you think the Vatican has manipulated society into worshipping the devil?
Well, they don't have to manipulate because we're all raised to think in those terms, right? But yeah, it's insidious. I mean, the Vatican was the basis of, and the so-called Catholic Church was the basis of Western culture. And, you know, when they say God, they mean the devil, the God of the world, and not the God of eternity.
So you're getting asked about people who marry into the royal family. Do they get told before or after they marry into it?
They know before. You don't. They're not going to run the risk of bringing a neophyte who then, you know, tries to pull a Princess Diana or whatever. And you know, I mean, think the way people in corporations think, because it's the corporate model. The whole thing, there's a screening process to test out who can be the best functional psychopath, and they rise quickest to the top, right?
And the next question was, you preempted it about Diana. Do you think Diana had to undergo an initiation, or was she unalived because she wouldn't play along with it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
How are Malthusian economics used to harbor economic inequality to affect the public?
I studied Malthus once. I'm trying to remember, and it has to do, you know, kind of social Darwinism. Is that what you mean? I don't want to get into that because I can't comment intelligently on that right now.
Yeah, let's keep the questions on subject, please, for Kevin. And do you think these people are human or something else?
I think they start human, just like we all do. But, you know, as part of the ceremony, it's designed to drive out that humanity. If you can't do that to a child, the things we've been describing, you're done away with immediately in these cults. They don't want to run the risk you're going to talk, right? So, no, I mean, it's a matter of continual degradation, right? And, you know, when my first contact with that when I was very young, I mean, there was like, and I got into the ministry, I was doing prison ministry, and I met serial killers, and they have no qualms. They're like missing that part of the brain. I think they call it the limbic system, where you have empathy, compassion for people. They always feel they're the ones hard done by. And you know what's amazing, Shaun? in this campaign about genocide by the churches, every time we'd go to a church and try to talk to the church attendees about the crimes that they did to children, they would be angry. They acted like the serial killers, saying, how dare you say this about our church? They had no empathy for the tens of thousands of children who died at their hands. They were just upset we were talking about it. That's how psychopaths act. But you see, when the culture is psychopathic, everybody has to adapt and become a functional psychopath too. And if you're not, you're a problem. And you're like Neo down the chute in the Matrix, right? You've gotten rid of, because you can't upset the group psychosis. And that's what we're in, right?
Is there a connection to the Catholic Church and the transgender movement?
You see, I don't have specific evidence about that, but it all flows naturally, because transgenderism and all that is about the main thrust of genocide is to destroy people's natural identity and create an artificial one. So you want to alienate children, you want to destroy families, you want to make male and female only one of 39 genders. It's designed to confuse people mentally, but get their energy so off that they can be manipulated and destroyed. I mean, it's all part of the same agenda when you look at it, and it isn't just the Vatican doing it.
So Nunya, thanks for the super chat. He wants to know about Masonic connections these people have to each other. For example, Trump, Diddy.
You see, Masonry and all that is, again, like we mentioned with the fronts created by the military research, where they say, oh, this is satanic, right? It's a convenient bugaboo, you know, to say they're Freemasons. And in fact, yeah, I mean, it's a cult like a lot of others, but it isn't, it's distraction to get focused on one particular cult and not look at the pattern happening through the entire culture, right?
Was John Paul II also committing SRA?
Well, that's what we've been describing. And
yeah.
And I wouldn't call it abuse. It's a lot more serious than abuse. You know, got to be careful with the language. It's programming you to think it's less than it is.
Susan wants to know, is this global?
Of course.
Okay, Glasgow, what is the proof of all this, with all due respect?
Proof. Eyewitness testimonies, corresponding evidence, documentary evidence, and forensic evidence, bones. The three things that we provided in Canada, which prove definitively that genocide happened, so definitive that even the Pope and Prime Minister use the word genocide to describe it. And those are the three elements you need in a court of law: eyewitness testimony, archival documentation to confirm the statements of the eyewitnesses, and forensic proof. It's all there, as you'll see after the court begins in September.
Is it fair to say that religious orphanages were created for nefarious purposes from the beginning?
Yeah. If you believe children are born evil and anything can be used to, quote, save their souls, then any method is justified. But it means brutalizing at a very young age. Rulers have need of that. That's why there's always been a close tie between church and state, because they need the population brutalized so they can be kept in line, right? Function of religion.
Do you believe Robert Pickton has any ties to these people?
Well, people may not know who that is, but he was one of the serial, they claim the Pickton family took the fall to a lot of disappearances that happened, mostly against Native women on the west coast of Canada. And we know Robert and Dave Pickton and Willie Pickton, who died in prison conveniently, were fall guys. They were on the body disposal crew of a much bigger network involving former prime ministers, mayors, Canadian senators, top Catholic archbishops in Canada, cardinals. And I've talked to the undercover guys who went in there and saw this happening for himself. You know, so I mean, it's the same pattern all over. You need a decoy, right?
How did Epstein become a member of the Trilateral Commission and the Council of Foreign Relations?
Oh, you know, I guess. I don't know. I don't know enough about his history. I just know about recent stuff we've uncovered about his involvement in the Ninth Circle and Trump and all that stuff we've discussed.
Yeah, I believe that Jeffrey was elevated for intelligence purposes through his his honey trapping, etc. He was, and that network that elevated him would have had him placed in said trilateral commissions and Council of Foreign Relations. So Lisa, Kevin, so much admiration, but how do you manage to close your eyes at night knowing all you do? I mean, I was about to throw up earlier.
I can sleep at night because I have a clear conscience and I know I'm doing the right thing. That's the main reason you're able to sleep. Now, in terms of the horror of all this, I guess you could say that I've developed a kind of shield, definitely, just to survive the personal loss of losing my kids and all this brutality I went through. In a way, I think it was preparing me for this bigger battle, because I'm able to do that. I have strong shields about this, and it's protected me in a lot of other ways too. But the important thing is not even to worry about yourself anymore, but find that higher fixed point around which to revolve, and that is the need for not only stopping these crimes, but creating a new world so that these things don't happen again, and that the life of a child is sacrosanct, which it's not in this present world tyranny.
What do you know about South American children in shipping containers?
Lots, actually, because that was a big study of ours in Vancouver, which is the main port of that. But a lot of that's from Asia, of course. It isn't just South America, but it's one of the standard means in false hulls. I actually, when I was a teenager, I learned about this in Vancouver because I was friends with a guy called Tom McGrath, who was in the Seafarers Union. He used to go in on board and help Filipino sailors when they were being kept in chains or not paid properly. And he said, oh yeah, the false bottom boats, he used to point them out. He said, that's how they bring in the people to trafficking. And everybody knew about it. The police helped unload it. You know, the mayor knew all about it. Like, this stuff is just so endemic to the culture, that it's one of the ways. But don't forget, they don't even need to hide this stuff anymore. It's all out in the open. Because when every level of society is colluding and the rest of us are just going, oh, I don't want to believe that. I've got my own little life to worry about. Why do you need to operate in secret? It's all out in the open. You just don't have eyes to see it. Once you open your eyes, you go, whoa, something better be done now, right?
Goldie wants to know, when do all these rituals take place? How do they have time for all this evil stuff? Well, we showed you a map of one location, Goldie, but there's a lot more places, isn't there, all over the world, Kevin?
Yeah, don't forget, I mean, it isn't just one agency doing this. It's a lot of people freelancing on their own, kind of mimicking this stuff. And you can't predict, but you're not going to do it unless you have some kind of protection. That's why locally you'll often find police, social workers, judges involved in local equivalents of what we're talking about. And so you got to do your own research. You need education and action and research. Those are the three stools on which we have to base everything. You have to knowledgeably know what you're dealing with.
You got a lot of people asking how they can help you to save the children.
Mm-hmm. Well, write to us, first of all. Angelfire101@protonmail.com is a way to contact me. And our websites, there's more information there, depending where you are. And I got to tell you, Shaun, and everybody listening or watching, that these programs are one of the things that activated our court, because a lot of the witnesses coming forward saw these interviews, because you've got such an exposure, right? And so I want to say the power of knowledge, getting it out there. Just start educating people about this and connect with us, and you can start doing follow-up actions, because these court verdicts are enforceable by anybody. You know, you can go in with a group of people, and as Native people do all over Canada, take back the local Catholic Church and say, they're using this place to traffic children out of. They don't have a right to operate. We're taking it over as a community center. Once they start doing that, the enemy is a lot weaker than you realize. You hit their money and public image, and they start panicking. So we have a lot more power than we realize. That problem is they don't exercise it quite often.
Is Kevin familiar with the actual horror history of Medjugorje, Croatia, where church claims appearance of Mary, but the actual history was a mass grave of Serbian kids underneath?
I believe it, because one of the people we work with, he's a professor I met actually in Croatia when I spoke there a number of years ago. And he documented the third largest death camp in Europe in the 1940s was Jasenovac in Croatia, sponsored directly out of the Vatican by Pope not so pious XII, who set up a Franciscan bishop named Ivan Saric, set up this camp to kill Serbs. because they say they weren't Roman Catholic, they were Orthodox. So they killed about 800,000 Serbs in that one camp. And there are mass graves of Serbian children, especially all over the place. So, you know, these you know, holy sites and that, you're right, they're often used to, no one's going to be digging around on a holy site, just like they don't dig up golf courses. They often put golf courses over the mass grave of Native children in Canada, right? Tourist centers and that, right? So yeah, good point. I'm glad you raised that.
What are your thoughts on Bowers having an outstanding complaint in 2018 of breach of fiduciary duty, which may have been putting pressure on him?
Yeah, I will, frankly, if you have any information on that, send it to us, because we need more information on Bowers. You're getting conflicting accounts. What we do know is he had his finger on a lot of secrets involving Deutsche Bank and Trump.
How can we ever begin to erase all the evil in this world we're in? Well, highlighting it is a start.
And don't let evil take hold in your own heart and life, you know, because we're all expected to be compliant in some way and be indifferent. And once you know what has to be done, then you just act on it and you'll help cleanse that.
Is the Pope the devil in human form?
I believe, like my ancestors did, that Rome represents Antichrist. That is the opposite to Christ. It's the biggest deception in human history. I don't think it, you know, like individuals when they sit on that throne embody that, yes, but it's not about individuals, it's about the entity behind it and the corporate entity it represents, right? So this is our focus all along, has been on the institutions and the systems behind them, because that's where you find the real evil. And it can, you know, it's like in possession, it takes possession of individuals, but there's no point of, and the system always gets us to be angry and hate individuals as if they're the problem. No, they're the embodiment of the problem. Right, but they can, once they're used, they're disposed of, right?
Thank you for the super chat, Chris. And a question from Tracy: do you think they will orchestrate an alien invasion attack in order to prevent all this coming out?
Yeah, you know, we've heard about that and using like all that imagery and that. The point is, it's like if people are dumb enough to believe these things, and yeah, they can be fooled by any image. But once you're armed with knowledge of what you're dealing with, and all of those games don't mean anything. You can see through it all, right?
Nita has just bought your book through the links in the description box. Thank you, Nita.
This one's our best-selling book now. We've sold over 1,200 of these thanks to all of you guys. So thank you. That tells you the problem, the nature of the beast in Rome.
And all of Kevin's links and contact are in the description box. If you've got any questions, get them in now, because Kevin has gone through them very rapidly. Let me see. Kevin's view on the Fatima Sanctuarium and the apparitions. Was it a hoax?
But of course, religion is a hoax. And they get more desperate. That's the point. It's like, we found this in the campaign when we were first bringing out the crimes of the churches in Canada. Right after that, the church began a big media campaign about how they're going bankrupt and all these distractions. And you know, it's like, it's all designed to get people to not look at the evidence. Like you're taught in law school. If the evidence is against your case, you attack the witness, like they always do me online, right? Attack the witness. Don't believe this guy. That's not the issue. The issue is the evidence, the hard evidence. And that's what we try to bring people back to all the time. What does it tell you? What conclusions do you have to draw based on what we know?
Is this the most evil time in Earth's history? I think because of technology, a lot of people can be affected by evil more so, perhaps.
I don't think the evil ever changes its nature. It embodies, you know, the nature of what we're dealing with. But you're right, the technology allows it to be far more effective. We're undergoing a period now of a revival of kind of neo-fascism all over the planet, right? And the hatred and the whole corporate thinking. We're free. Do you remember, I don't know, when I was growing up, there was so much more variation in what people were able and willing to say publicly. They weren't afraid, you know? And now it's so shrunk down to like censored fear everywhere, you know? It's like, I don't know, you'd think people would be sick of this, want to throw it off and just start again. And that's what we're hoping to encourage in people. Just Get out in nature, folks, with animals and children, and start living again. Be human beings, you know. That's your best assurance is that.
Indeed, too much Orwellian doublespeak.
Yeah.
Why is this only coming out now and not years ago?
It did come out years ago. We've known about these things for many years, but it's achieved a new platform. And like I say, the details put forward by the witnesses that I talked about today, that's been recent because of this exposure we've gotten through Shaun's show, but also we reach a critical mass. It's the law of nature. You know, enough quantitative changes eventually creates qualitative change. And boom, suddenly there's a whole new reality here. And we have to ride this wave because that's when things really change and when you can shut down these horrendous things, you know.
And don't forget, when I was growing up, all we had was BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV here in the UK, completely controlled mainstream media. There was no alternative media. So now, you know, there's more information flow. So CC wants to know, are all people in high levels of government corrupt?
People's personalities are one thing, but when they're in government or in a corporate system, yes, they're all part of a corruption that they have to cooperate in or they're not going to get their paycheck. So objectively, yes, they are part of that corruption. They can leave it and recover their humanity, but how many people are willing to do that until they have to?
Thank you for the super chat, College Initiatives. Thanks for this information. We had David Icke on last week, and he was talking about dystopia through AI. And Stephanie's wondering, what do you think about AI evolving and if it could remove elites?
Well, they created AI for their own purposes, so how could they use it? We use it that to remove them. Like, it's the old argument all the time about using the system to overthrow the system, and you can't. You've got to create it on a human terms. The last thing we need on this stuff is AI, because you can't tell the difference between reality and fabrication. And we have to, you know, there was one of the philosophers who created the American Revolution, Thomas Reid, he was what's called a philosophical realist, you know, a Scottish principle of you can know reality on the basis of what you observe and your own common sense. You know, you don't need some abstract forces that you can't see somehow influencing you. No, common sense is common law. And that says that we know what's going on. Our experience and our senses don't lie to us. We can act on that basis. So let's get back to that and not rely on artificial anything. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. You know, the elites are all competing right now to be at the forefront of AI. But perhaps Stephanie's referring to Frankenstein's monster turning upon Dr. Frankenstein. Do you think that's a possibility, Kevin?
It's happening. As a matter of fact, we talk about this a lot in Canada, that this monster we created to conquer other people is now turning on us and eating us and consuming us. And we think it's unfair because we're not supposed to be the ones who get destroyed. It's only other people who are. But now that it's doing that to us, we can look at what we've been part of and get out of it and say, no, we don't want this kind of system, technocratic genocide anymore.
Indeed. Geopolitics. Is a country like the Netherlands doomed?
Well, the nation state is a redundancy now. We're in a corporatocracy, and we have to recover that. You can, not the nation state, but going back to our cultural, you know, origins, we're seeing that devolution happening, right? Just as everything's getting centralized, it's kind of like when the Church of Rome was formed under Constantine. Just as everything was getting concentrated in Rome, you saw all over the empire monastic communities setting up, like the Egyptian Desert Fathers, and that people saying, no, we don't want any of this. We want to go back to the basic teachings of Christ and live simply. And according to that, you always see those opposite tendencies. And we've seen that in the world. You've seen, like the folks in England who are forming the Republic, they're all talking about creating self-sufficient land-based communities, local assemblies, pass our own laws, get away from this, you know, government that doesn't even operate anyway. Half the laws in England are passed by the European Parliament, right? So we got to decentralize all the time and put power back in the hands of the people, right?
Right. Looks like you've answered most of the questions, Kevin. Is there anything you'd like to say in conclusion to the viewers?
Well, just that September 1st is when that starts. That's when I'm going to be in Europe, and we can do all sorts of fun things there. We plan on doing that. But I would say get involved with this, learn more, and this link is going to be up on our website soon, and get the report all over the place. We're doing a media release tomorrow, and we're going to be posting this interview on the release. And just have everyone watch this and write to us, get involved wherever you are. We can send you a lot more information and context about how to do that and how to save the lives of children in your community.
My friend, the stakes are getting higher. You be sure to take care of yourself. And we salute you for your bravery, Kevin. I'm going to let you go and close the show. But thank you for coming on, man. That was mind-blowing.
Thank you, Shaun. Thanks for everything. And thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care. Cheers. And don't forget, everybody, please support Kevin at his links. They are all in the description box. If you want to email him, you can reach out. I know questions kept coming in, including that final super chat question there from Crows. Thank you for that. Yeah, Kevin's email is in the description box if you guys want to write to him. And if you didn't see my video with John Sweeney, who is Ghislaine Maxwell, this video will take you over to that one next. We've got Ari Ben Menashe Part 2 coming up next week. We've got Anya Wick Part 2 in the making. We have got Juliet Bryant and Audra coming on. Part 2s for Audra, both Epstein survivors. Tons more phenomenal content coming out. Wherever you are in the world, take care, folks. Much love and respect, and take care of the kids. And thank you for all of your brilliant questions as usual.